ladies and gentlemen, part of the Football Friday second hour is this gentleman, the only back-to-back winner of the Hilton Super Contest. You can follow him on Twitter at Fezzik Sports, and he comes to us live in studio. It's Steve Fezzik, everybody. How you doing?
You know, it's interesting. By the way, I was told there's going to be Brooklyn's best pizza, but considering it's the morning, it doesn't shock me that it wasn't here.
Yeah,
love that.
I'm so sorry.
Love that pizza. Humans is always, Steve, can you come in? We got Brooklyn's best. I'm like, oh. Okay, yeah, I'll make it soon.
Catering for Fezzik, everybody. Catering for Fezzik. Hey, let me start with this because I know you have things to say. I don't want to get in your way, but you did make, and I want to share with everybody. Because I don't want to forget this part. You did make some adjusted season win totals bets in the NFL. Care to share?
You know, number one, sure. I bet like 6 of them, but the one that really stood out, and unfortunately it has been pulled off, is one of the major providers out there kept the Miami Dolphins up, and the Dolphins were under 9.5. You had to lay like minus 134. I think it came back up. In what universe can the Dolphins be lined at 9.5 now? And it just goes to show, you hear this all the time. Oh, the NFL, it's unbeatable. It's so difficult. And here's a line. I mean, the Dolphins pre-flop number was 9.5 vig to the over. Well, things couldn't have gone much worse
That's right.
than what they've gone in the past 36 hours, 24 hours. So, I mean, the Dolphins, realistically, if I had to set a number on the Dolphins, I don't know. I mean, maybe 8? What do you think? Would you go over under 8?
Well, this is the thing about it. Again, we talked about this on the Megapod. Joe Pita was on. We talked about the old Lehman Brothers off-the-grid stock market thing that we used to do.
Oh, yes.
That originated there. And this is well before legalized sportsbook did adjusted season win totals. So it gives you a sort of education on these kind of things. They have to be adjusted pretty aggressively at this point. I mean, the Tua thing obviously being the biggest factor in that. 1-1 is probably what I think you could have assumed them to be. So you would say, well, then why would they be adjusted that much from 9.5 pre-flop? But the Tua part is the factor here, right? That's the one that changes the dynamic of the team, and it's going to cause them to be underdogs in places where they would not have otherwise been.
And people are like, oh, well, there's not much of a drop-off to Skylar Thompson. It's like what are you smoking?
Yeah.
You know, it's like you're already talking about, we need to bring in some stiff backup like Joe Flacco is 105. Obviously, if Joe Flacco is better than your starting quarterback, I know he went 11-5 with Cleveland.
Cleveland Picks on Twitter tweets, Flacco is ours. Signed a Cleveland Browns fan who is gearing up for an impending Watson suspension for his latest off-the-field issue. So they're claiming him tightly.
So danger math coming. So
Yeah.
Tua's maybe a 1.5 better than an average quarterback. Skylar Thompson's maybe 3.5 points worse. So you got a 5-point difference. You got 16 games remaining. 16 times 5. That's 80. I stole that from you. So that's like 80 points. So how much is 80 points with the win?
Yeah.
That's like 2.2 wins. So boom, if Miami was supposed to be 9.5, that gets me to 7.3. But obviously this doesn't figure in the fact that Tua could come back, or they could find some kind of better backup. So maybe 8 might be a little low. I'll go 8.3.
8.3 sounds about right. I'll give you that. You had a question for me you wanted to ask. You did a little show and tell here with this ticket?
I did want to answer your question because a couple other teams. I bet the Raiders under 6.5.
Oh yes, I'm sorry.
Lay $1.25. I think that's outstanding.
Repeat that again.
Of Raiders under 6.5 wins minus $1.25. I'm driving in. I'm listening to local talk to other. Like, Raiders season is over. I played the Bengals under 9.5.
Okay.
And I know they were pre-flop 10.5, but they just lost 0.77 wins because that was their win share on week 1. And as bad as they looked, already a 2-point adjustment on the Kansas City line, I think that was a slam dunk. Those were 2 more that I bet. On your second question...
Well, before you get to the second question, now I have a follow-up. So you get a $40 pass post fine on the first answer, and I bring this up because you are the first person to text me and get really angry at guests when I ask them a question and they give an answer of a line that is no longer there, but you see how they can run into that trouble. If I ask them, oh, what's your favorite, or hey, what are the 3 you made, the first thing out of your mouth was something the 9.5 might not be available everywhere. So you see how this is a conundrum. You can't get mad at these guests for giving you a
fair enough.
A pass
but I only get fined $40, not $120, because the next 2 that I did give are available, and I thought you were going to find me. So because of that, I specifically interrupted your question so I could give 2 that were available, so I wouldn't be in so much heat. I do have a question for you, Gill Alexander. So week 2, the very capable Seahawks are at the New England Patriots. what is the best number I could possibly have bet on Seattle? People say it's so hard to beat the NFL, and I'm going to come over the top and say it's one of the most easy to beat sports. And I'm going to use this game as an example. What number could I bet? I'm going to disclose. I bet this during the summer. Seattle at New England.
Oh, you bet it
What
during
number
the
did I
summer.
get on Seattle? They're currently a minus 3.3 favorite. When I say minus 3.3, that means it's 3 to 3.5.
Well, it was under 3, wasn't it?
It was.
So it was either 2 or 2.5, maybe 1.5.
Read that off.
It is Seattle -1.
So think about this.
Yeah.
During the summer, I bet Seattle -1. Well, things couldn't have gone much worse than New England crushing the Bengals with a great defense. If New England massively overexceed expectations, Seattle met expectations. If New England had gotten rolled in that game, this line would be 5 or maybe 4.5.
Right.
And so despite the fact that New England played so far above their heads, their noses are going to bleed for a month, in the jungle, I'm still staring at like a closing line value that's just tremendous. And heck, if I just wanted to earn off of this, people are like, well, you got a middle to earn off of this. I mean, I could just bet plus 150, and earn off of it.
Could I play point counterpoint with you?
Sure.
Not everyone listening is as, and I say this lovingly, not everyone listening is as Meshuggah as you are, right? Meshuggah, who are betting stuff in the middle of the summer, right? Absolutely. I say this is, by the way, I brought this up on the Megapod. I think this is the greatest point Todd Wishnev has ever made. The thing about you is, people know you, like I always say, in real life, nice guy. Twitter, horrible human being. But the truth is that guy on Twitter, Todd brought this up, which I think is so great. Isn't it ironic that the most arrogant guy on Twitter is actually the most humble when it comes to betting NFL? Because you respect the market so much that you remove your opinion largely. You have some opinion, but you largely do it mechanically. You are just looking for the best of it, completely just religiously in that respect. And so that's actually the most humble way to bet the NFL. And Todd points out it's guys like me and him who have so many opinions that will never be as successful because we actually, by having opinions, think we are smarter than the market more than we ought to think that. I think that's the most fascinating thing about you, is that you're all these different people, right? You're that horrible human being on Twitter. You're a worst. Let me just repeat this, Steve.
Look like a Disney
You're
character.
the worst human being ever on Twitter, but you are the most humble bettor, and this is a great example of that.
You have to respect the market. To use like a really cheesy analogy, like the big bad dragon in The Hobbit, Smaug. He's going down to kick butt in Lake Town, right? And he's getting too close to the lake, and he's like, and remember, he's like, no army can stand up to Smaug. And he's like, the lake is mightier than I. I can't go into the lake because that lake is going to cause me all kinds of problems as a fire-breathing dragon.
But I want to get, I don't know about the lake part, but I want to get to the point about you doing this in the summer. Let's say the person, people listening don't do this stuff in the summer. In the middle of May, they have jobs. Middle of June, middle of July. They're not like you who is always looking for the best numbers. Like, oh yeah, Todd, there's a 2.5. Get it. They can do it from week to week though as well.
Great question. I'm gonna give one out, and it is widely available, so there will be no fines on this one.
Yes.
So I could make a case week 2 here. The Vikings, I'm very excited about the Vikings, how well they played. Darnold might be a capable starting quarterback. So I like the Vikings hosting San Francisco, catching 5 points. All right. But let me ask you this: who's better, San Francisco or the Houston Texans? Gill Alexander.
Why don't we get that answer on the other side? You'll stick around for another one?
Absolutely.
Even after I called you Meshuggah and said you're the worst person on earth?
I'm looking
Twitter?
that up.
Okay. Steve Fezzik.
Voldemort.
And that answer next on A Numbers Game at VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Jason H11. Kelly, don't sleep on Tannehill. Sorry, couldn't stop laughing. I was going to try and make a joke, but I can't. Not a believer in Tannehill, in other words. Nevada Azer. I believe AFC front offices need to be more prudent and realistic how they spend. Miami needed to truly ask the right questions. Needs to. Can this team beat Kansas City as currently constructed? Do we need to re-up the quarterback? Can we wait? Answer is no. Nothing wrong with a little patience. New York Mets 16. Of all the quarterbacks that you mentioned, who throws the best deep ball? Because isn't that what suits Miami best? Deep to Tyreek opens up the slants to Waddle, and I'm sure that quarterback will be able to hand off to Mostert and Achane. This is from Nash, last name Nash. With a numbers game, I anxiously anticipate 2 things every week: the Pioneers' appearance every Friday and the name of the sushi spot. Well, you'll get one of those. Just to follow VSiN Madden 2000 hack, always talk about the Megapod. D'Angelo Hall moving to kick return and wide receiver. It was just like Bo Jackson and Tecmo Bowl. Somehow D'Angelo Hall came up on the Megapod. StatLogic Sports, the Dodgers aren't the same team with and without him. He's carried a team with tons of pitching injuries this year and injuries to key position players. Not a legit argument from Felica. And what doesn't matter is anyone's interpretation of MVP. We can all create narratives. Thank you. That's what I was trying to tell him. And this is from, this is from Brian Schaefer. Ohtani is winning the Triple Crown and a 50-50 candidate. What are we even talking about, Felica? I hate the Dodgers, but come on. He's on Barry Lamar bond status. Well, now easy on the Barry Lamar bonds. But you're absolutely right, Brian Schaefer. He's not going to win it. Lindor is not going to win it, that is. And we do have one more of that. This is from Fox, PhillyGambler.com. He says, LOL, Chris Felica campaigning for Lindor NL MVP simply due to having an open wager. Makes sense, Gill. You out your dang mind, he said. Yes. I went with you, Cray, but that works as well. We love Chris. We had a little struggle in that segment with something else, but we'll get to that. Steve Fezzik. Oh, I see you have your fine money.
Yeah,
Thank
here we go. So
much.
I gave out Miami under 9.5 wins. It had just gone off the board it was FanDuel that had it, so they don't have it anymore. So a past posted line not available. There's $40.
Thank you very much.
For the crew.
Thank
donuts,
you.
Whatever.
Appreciate that. You asked me a question before the break. I'm supposed to answer.
Yes, so I wanted to ask you, who's better, San Francisco or the very capable Houston Texans, and by about how many points?
The San Francisco 49ers, most will have power rated higher than them, and I would say it's by about, depending on the situation, but somewhere in the 2.5 point range.
I can accept that. I make it 3, but we're right in the same point.
Yeah.
So here's where I'm going. So it's like buying a house. We're looking at comps. So you want to bet the Vikings week 2. Well, they're home with a big home field advantage against the Niners. They're catching 5. But the very next week, the Vikings are home again, and they're playing Houston, and they're catching 4. So, wait, that's a 1 point difference.
By the way, it's boop, 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 boop.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
And corrected.
Yeah.
And there's only 1 point difference in those point spreads, but there's a 2.5 point difference in your power ratings. So, thus, if you like the Vikings plus 5 against San Francisco, then Blue Horseshoe loves the Vikings plus 4 against the Houston Texans, a Texans team, frankly, that didn't even cover at Indianapolis. And so, although it probably should have, put me down an official play, widely available, plus 4, but Minnesota week 3.
And so this is a good example of what we were talking about in the last segment about how you bet football. And again, with Stevie, it's very mechanical, and that's a good thing in the NFL. Again, Todd's comment, I think, is great, which is, you are actually more humble. You have more humility than we do when you approach the NFL. And so for you, it's like, it's really easy to beat. This is all you do. Now, it should be pointed out because you have not only won the back-to-back super contests, but last year you finished what at Circa?
21st in the millions.
21st, and people were giving you incoming on that. They're like, you suck. You haven't won in a long time.
Fez collapsed down the stretch. He was in second place and Thanksgiving.
I love that.
And he finished 21st, and they're largely correct. They basically hit 500, and when there's 5,000 guys, it's like the World Series of Poker.
Yeah.
You misplay your queens, and you head to the rail.
But the point is that more often than not, you will contend in these massive contests. Not every year, right? Some years it doesn't work out that way with this strategy. Yes. But usually you will. Yeah. That's why you're consistent. How are you doing in the Humans Friday Night Invitational Pro-Am?
Well, I don't pay much attention. It's really early, and Chuck Goodell has the lead. Yeah. But I am tied with him. Yes, for first.
Yeah. By the way, it's not the Humans Pro-Am Invitational. It is called
the Circa Invitational. Derek Stevens is fantastic with that and really spends a lot of time and input, and we all love Derek.
Yes, we do. The Tua Tagovailoa concussion last night and the resulting, and it was, again, the fencing response is just, it jars you watching it. But it does, again, sorry to be callous about this, it does bring up another betting point about season-long props with players. Because your strategy is
unders across the board, skill position players, and it's basically a free roll where 20% of your bets you make, you're going to win automatically because the player's going to play 13 or fewer games. Just the nature of the beast with these injuries.
Yeah. I hate to say it, but that's just a sound thing, right? Injuries help you no matter what. And anyone who bets overs, that's what you're worried about. It's very simple.
Exactly.
In that regard.
Now, real important, this won't work in the NBA, okay? Because the NBA does not set how many yards or how many points in this case that Embiid is going to score. It's all based upon a average per game. So when a player misses 40 games load management, he's actually more likely to score in the few games that he plays. So don't do this in the NBA.
All right, Mr. Smarty Pants, can I call you that? Would you like to share at least a week 2 NFL pick with everybody?
Sure. One that got big opposition. And so, by the way, I love Todd Wishnev. And if you missed the massacre at Duck Creek, Todd came out here. Todd weighs like 400 pounds now.
No, and he does not.
And he's heading back to 300.
Yes.
So but Todd, he basically on one leg and no hips.
Yeah.
Whacked Gilly and I. Yeah. And then Gilly whacked me on top of that. To answer the question, Steve. I have opposition here. I have a very well-known service that will remain nameless, RAS, going the opposite way. But I just don't understand. The spot for the Jets is so bad at Tennessee. So think about it. The Jets don't get home to their houses probably until 10 a.m. on Tuesday. Then on Saturday, they got to get on a plane to Tennessee. I only have the Jets in my power ratings 3.5 points better. So on a neutral, and my ratings might be a little off, possibly so. But on a neutral, I make the game 3.5. The spot overwhelmingly favors Tennessee. And Tennessee off a phony loss to the Bears, as phony will be, where they easily won the stats and held the Bears down to 140 yards. So in what will likely be a low-scoring game, I lean under. I'm on the Titans +4.
You're on the Titans +4. You were asking also off air, you're like, oh, did Kelly, you said Kelly specifically, but this could apply to me too. Did you all take the Dolphins in Circa? No, it was -3 on the Dolphins last night on Circa. So they saved us because we're like, I'm not playing that.
And I'm bad. I never ever submit on Thursday because I like to have the extra, 60 hours to make my decisions.
Best information possible.
Exactly. I guess 48 hours in this case. But but I would have seriously considered, if I would have known it was 3, I would have seriously considered at 3 taking Buffalo. But no way I would have gone with Buffalo at 2.5. But at 3, I might have played one of my entries. So no big deal. I love having. I love submitting later. I think it's one of the big mistakes contest players do.
Yeah.
Is they submit. Either they submit too early with the Thursday game, or they submit too late and they don't put in their picks.
I have to go to California after the show, and I am already in my head. I'm like, don't forget to put in your picks. Don't forget to put in your picks. Like it's a whole thing because I'm not going to get back till after the deadline tomorrow night. All right, we have time. I'm not going to ask you to reveal 2 of your picks every week when you come on, but since we have a little time, would you care to share one other thought on one other play?
I'll probably be Vikings. I think the spot's really bad for. I'll bet. I would love to bet more. There's just not enough of a market for it. That week 3 play with the Vikings, but I'm high on the Vikings. I like what I saw. Just crushing the Giants. What's interesting, the market is not throwing the Giants into the trash can. They're getting plenty of support against Washington this week. But C-Mac's very likely not to play. San Fran, you got the Super Bowl hangover, and didn't look like it affected them week 1, but so much mileage on their tires from last year and all those really tough playoff games. You have to feel they're going to exhale. Really nice Monday Night Football win. And this is a game, go into Minnesota and just try to get the win.
Biggest mistake you see bettors making in the NFL, period. Blanket statement. Biggest mistake.
They approach it like a final exam. So they spend all week studying, reading up everything, listening to all these podcasts, including the Megapod, which is tremendous, especially with that Todd Wishnev, who is wildly entertaining.
Yes.
And then it's like, okay, it's time to take the exam. And so whenever they bet, like Friday or Saturday, they're like, all right, now I'm going to make my bets. Boom, 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 boom. And they're like, I'll shop for the best number at that point in time.
Yeah.
And set it and forget it. And it's absolutely not the right way to go.
Because you got the bets from way back when.
Well, and it's a cycle. It's like literally the lines are boop, boop, up and down, up and I can't do that like you. Go ahead.
Boop, 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 boop.
There it is.
Yeah.
So famously, a friend of mine, the Hitman, he does a static show on Wednesday, and he had a really terrible record when he had to give out his best bet every Wednesday at a certain time. He had but in his own bets, he had one of the greatest records ever. He just crushed it because literally he'll come out and he'll say, okay, the news just came out on this information. Obviously, C-Mac's not playing, so I'm going to play the other guys, to have more carries. That's how people win, by betting right when the information's breaking and getting the best of the numbers.
Thanks for watching, but don't let the betting insights end here. If you want an extra edge this football season, you can get a month of VSiN Pro right now, absolutely free. That means access to our betting insights, analysis, and tools like our betting splits at 0 cost to you. Click the link in the description to sign up.